Hi there, I'm Robin Kelly from Cakewalk, and I recently conducted a demo at the DV Expo, showing some of the workflow enhancements of Sonar 7. In case you didn't make it to the demo, here's an online version. First thing I'd like to do is open up a new file. And as you can see here, there's actually nothing in the file. So I'm going to add a track template, and I do this by right-clicking and then selecting from my folder. And I'm going to go ahead and select drums. Now, as Brandon always says, if you're going to do something more than once inside of Sonar, you should set a track template for it. At this point, it's actually added all of my individual outputs of the session drummer, patched the session drummer, created a MIDI track for me, and I've got the synth rack docked at the bottom. It's also created a drum bus for me, and it's even patched the VC64. So here's a drum pattern inside of Session Drummer. It's actually one of the included patterns. And let's say I'd like to use this in my song, but I want to make it editable later. Well, what I'm going to do is actually click and drag on the note, and hold down my mouse button, and drag it to the track where I want to place it. Let's take a listen. That sounds really good, but it's only one measure long. So if I grab the end of it, I can actually roll it out, because just like audio, you can have MIDI groove clips. And now, as you can both see and hear, I can have this section repeat and repeat. Now what I'd like to do is actually add another track, and again I'm going to do this through a track template. Again, I simply right-click, select Insert from Track Template, and then choose the template that I want. Here I'm actually going to go ahead and patch Rapture. Rapture's already locked into my synth rack for me, and I have stereo output of Rapture and a MIDI track that's been created. As you can see, Rapture has many different controls, and I may want to customize how they're used inside of ACT. To do this is very easy. If I don't want to use the default mappings, just simply click on the ACT button in the upper right-hand corner of each plugin window. Then, simply click on the controls inside of the plugin. Once I'm done with moving the controls inside of the synthesizer, I then move the corresponding controls on my controller keyboard, in the same order that I'd like to have them used. Then once I press the ACT button again, it asks me if these parameters and controls are correct. I say yes, and I'm ready to go. Now I can remote control Rapture. Every time I bring up Rapture, the mappings will be exactly the same. That's because this is actually a global setting. I don't have to go back and change it time after time. This is a file that I created ahead of time. You'll notice at the bottom of the track view that my synth rack is docked just like in the previous file. I can switch between the synth rack and the bus preview window as well. Now I can add multiple items to my tab browser down at the bottom. Simply open up the plugin or window you'd like to dock, click on the icon in the upper left-hand corner, and select Enable Tabbed. At this point, it's actually part of my tab browser, making it very easy to access. If I want to go ahead and turn it off and float the window, that's easy to do as well. Right-click on the tab and select Disable Tabbed. Let's go ahead and take a look at all the different tracks inside of this file. First track is actually a bass out of Rapture. Next is some percussion using the session drummer. I'm actually only using the snare drum from a pattern that's preloaded in the session drummer. And then I have an acidized wave file in the background that's playing the rest of the beat. I have another instance of Rapture that's actually playing a pad. Finally, I also have a vocal track, and this vocal track was actually lifted from Dimension. Unfortunately, though, they're not in the same key as the song. So to go ahead and put that in the right key, I'm going to use vVocal. So right-click and select vVocal, create vVocal clip. At this point, your audio is actually analyzed and the vVocal 1.5 editor appears. Now very simply, what I want to do is zoom on in to the section of audio I'd like to work on. Then I'm going to go ahead and tell it to scale. So I'm just going to adjust a few settings here. And then go ahead and click on D because the song is in the key of D, and hit correct. You'll now notice orange lines above the yellow. This is where the pitch has been shifted from. So let's go ahead and hear how that sounds inside of the file. This is another file that was created ahead of time. And as you can see, it has these rather large clips, and inside of each one of them are these striped lines. These are actually different tracks, and these tracks are kept within folders, known as track folders within Sonar. This allows you to very easily organize clips and files of the same type. For example, here are all my vocal tracks. It also allows me to edit them as one whole group instead of individually. Let's take a listen. All my different folder tracks are routed to individual buses, making mixdown simple. The guitar folder has yet to be routed to a bus. Let's go ahead and do that. Simply right-click in the bus section of the track view and select Add New Stereo Bus. Then we'll go ahead and name this bus and then open it up so we can change some of its parameters. Let's change the track icon from the default arrows to something a little bit more recognizable. So we're going to browse into our guitar folder and then select a guitar icon from the electric guitar section. If you'd like to change the output of multiple tracks very easily, simply click on the track folder, which will select all of the other tracks inside of it. Go to Track, Property, and then go ahead and choose Output. From there, I can route all my tracks very quickly to our new bus. This saves having to individually change each track. Of course, you can solo and mute folders as well, making it very easy to isolate different tracks. Here we have all of our different tracks, over 40 of them, inside of the console view. To the right is the busing section, where you can see the new stereo bus that we created for the guitars. Once I have my relative mix, using the buses is much easier for my final tweaks. On my final output, I have both the vintage channel and also the LP64 linear phase multiband compressor. The vintage channel does introduce warmth and color to my sound, whereas the linear phase multiband dynamic processor, the LP64, does not. This is very important in my final stages of mastering, where I do not want to color my sound anymore, but may just want to add a little bit more high-end or low-end to my mastering process. That's when you want to use the linear phase plugins. If you're working with other studios and they have an OMF compatible application, you can actually export and import OMF files directly from Sonar. Simply go to the export option from the file menu and select OMF. Select export audio if you'd like to export your file in different audio formats. Sonar can export in many popular formats. If I've been using buses inside of my file, creating submixes for different members of the band becomes a very easy job indeed. Simply click on the buses that you don't want to have selected in the mix, go ahead and name your file, and press export. Here we've created a version with no vocals, so the vocalist can go home and practice. If we want to remove the guitars, or any other part, say like the keys, it's very easy to do. Simply click on it and say, no keys. Go ahead and hit export. This makes your final mixdown very quick and easy. I hope you enjoyed looking at some of the workflow enhancements inside of Sonar 7. As many people say, Sonar doesn't get in the way of your music making. See you next time.